Petroleum boiler? Overrated, too much effort. We have the petroleum duplication machine. Hello to all the meeps and bubbles and welcome back to part 2. Today I'm gonna show you how to stock up your petroleum reserves. Okay, now that we have this here going and the base hopefully is stable enough to handle anything that we throw at it, let's keep on going with the real exploit here. But first we need a little bit more space than before. Yes, even more than that. The reason why I leave it open to space is it is easier to make a vacuum. Nice, now we can finally start with the exploit. I want petroleum and I don't want to produce it in the regular way. That is way too much effort. So let's do it like so. We need a little bit of space, a tile here, 2 spaces like this. There goes a mesh tile. 2 liquid vents with a very specific amount of liquid in it, where we will use the liquid meter valves for, which we can connect to each other and later the grid with a pipe. And we need another liquid vent in the middle. Then I'm gonna place down the piping for a later involvement of cooling. What I mean with that is I'm preparing the piping for a cooling loop. If you build it like that, I would advise to skip the mesh tile with the help of a bridge. We also want a second layer, 2 tiles high should be enough. While we're at it, let's grab the barbecue. For this specific cooled version, you will need to power your equipment. Since I'm using an aqua tuner, conductive wire or heavy watt wire should do the trick. Now that we have that finally going for us, let me explain what I did here. First off, we have 3 different liquid vents. 2 of them are temporary and are just there to fill this spot and this spot with a little bit of water. The middle vent has the function to drop the liquid that we want to multiply. Yes, this is a liquid multiplier that can multiply any liquid that is heavier than water, if the temperature range allows it. In order to keep the multiplication running, we need a pump that sucks up the already multiplied liquid and feeds it back, creating an infinite feedback loop. And because this will heat up over the span of multiple cycles, we will need to cool it down. I'm just using the aqua tuner made out of aluminum ore because it will not activate very much. We also don't want to cool down the large amount of liquid, but only the tiny bit of liquid that is up here, because the temperature will be multiplied too, meaning if we cool this with a small bit of energy, it will cool the system. But if we use the aqua tuner to cool down the bottom part, it will use up a lot of power, if it even can keep up. So for the piping, this will just go here. Maybe we better use an insulated pipe for that. And for the aqua tuner, we just do a regular aqua tuner loop, check the temperature right in front of it with a liquid pipe thermosensor, hooked up with an automation cable made out of anything, in our case we are using lead, to the aqua tuner, which will control the temperature in the cooling loop that we are now building. We already prepared parts of the piping on top, just imagine the left and right liquid output gone, and then we can connect up insulated pipes to the in and output of the aqua tuner. In case we need to bypass the aqua tuner, can we find the shortest way? Maybe like so. If we cut the pipe here, we can fit in a bridge. This will transfer a little bit of coldness into the wall, but it doesn't really matter. The next important thing is we need a vacuum in this spot, which we don't have at the moment. But that is why I built it as close to space as I did. And while the gases are dissipating into space, I cleared out an area to the right and tiled in everything down below. I did that so we can hollow it out and use it as a liquid storage. Now we could technically prepare the liquid that we want to duplicate. I will be dropping it with the bottle emptier as soon as this is a vacuum, which it is not at the moment, because I wasn't very smart and opened up this area. Polluted oxygen got in and everything was in the atmosphere again. A billion years later, and we can start dropping the liquid that we want to multiply, in our case the petroleum. Maybe a single bottle is enough, the petroleum is already dropping down, reaching the pump, being sucked up and transported to the liquid valve. Before the polluted water for the cooling loop comes in, I want to set the liquid pipe thermosensor to a value where it does not activate. So I put in only activate if below 20 kilograms, because I thought the water here was warm, which it was not. This is a very cold place. But now to the more important part, where precision is needed. The liquid meter valve will be set to 0.06, which is equal to 60 grams of water. That is the exact right amount to have a single water tile that spreads to the next tile, but not the third tile. So let us stop dropping the petroleum now and then manually activate the meter valves one after another. For that we just have to press reset amount, but nothing happened. Why is that? Because we don't have water in the pipe. Okay. And why is that the case? Probably because our water sieve, has no sand in it. I ordered the duplicant to come by and produce a little bit of sand manually. Produce some sand, sand is delivered to the water sieve, clean water is being produced and sand off. The clean water will then be dropped here as exactly 60 gram. Yep and yep. After that we can deconstruct the liquid vents and cut all unnecessary pipings. After the dupe has deconstructed the liquid vents, we can fill the cooling loop. For that I wanted to use the polluted water, but that seems to be mixed. So I switched to clean water instead. And I also changed the liquid thermosensor to above 30 degrees Celsius, saving us power for the cooling. Because technically we don't want or need very cold petroleum. After closing off the top walls, we should be done. Nice, this is working perfectly. Now we only need to fill the loop. Okay, I already filled the loop. Good that I kept an eye on that, huh? Now we can just feed the excess water back to the main grid, leaving us with empty pipes that we can deconstruct later on. For that, a simple bridge should do. So if I'm not mistaken, we produce around 2.5 kilogram of new fresh petroleum in a temperature range of around 18 degrees Celsius. At least until we need to cool it, then it will probably even out at 30 degrees. And we produce that amount forever, at least until we run out of power. But since we do have so much petroleum, we can make a nice system out of that. By the way, I wanted to show this to you since around episode 3. Sometimes it just takes a while to get to your ideas. I want to have similar refueling setups on the other planetoids. This down here, by the way, is supposed to be our giant petroleum tank. That being said, we can now refuel our rocket and use the excess petroleum to power the whole setup. I'm just connecting up the pipe to the tank, add a few ladders to the system and connect the pump to the power grid. After that we need to find a space for the petroleum boiler. So I think I decided I will just put it here and drop the polluted water down to the right, where I can reuse it later. With the petroleum generator done, we are able to get enough to keep the system running indefinitely. What is still missing is the refueling ability for our oxidizer. Since we are using fertilizer for that, I have a tiny setup here. For that we use dirt and we use the polluted water that is coming from our petroleum generator that is powered by our cloned petroleum. We don't even need outside power, theoretically, because this here runs on 2 kilograms of petroleum per second, and this should theoretically produce 2.5 kilograms a second, meaning we even have leftover petroleum, which we can use to fill the rocket, which we did. And here are some fresh new atmosuits for our traveling dupes. Check out this planet, we got our metals from the right, and this here in the middle is the system that we would have needed to refuel our rocket with petroleum. And to the left is the living area and the oxygen production. Here in the middle is everything that will be burnt to a crisp once we start the rocket. Other than that, the dupes are highly radiated and even vomited from radiation sickness to the left, so I want to give them some definitely needed red pills. There we go, now we can produce a couple red pills. Only thing we need for that is coal. And mop up your mess. I also totally forgot that we need to do some research in order for us to know where we want to fly with the rocket. Finished. And while one Nazgul is de-stressing, the other one is taking care of the red pill production. I also thought about giving the dupes a farming area so they can produce their own food. Again, forgetting that this is a very cold planet, so nothing will grow here. I followed it up with a bit of research for both duplicants, so we finally know what is in telescope range. Absolutely nothing is here. Nothing. Leaving me with the idea of researching the telescope module for the rocket. But apparently I have used up all of the databanks, leaving me with the task of sending Inhaler Euro back up into space with a little bit of plastic to do the research, after breakfast of course. By the way, I added even more stuff to the refueling planet. This is my, well, improvised food cooling system. And I even connected it up to our payload opener, as you can see here. At the moment we have carbon dioxide and chlorine in here, but it is only at -8 degrees Celsius. Not sure how far this can go into the negative, with just this one single V-sword. So how do we feed this V-sword? Easy, just place down an auto sweeper that can reach the bottom tile, with the help of this corner access here. The storage bin to the left will hold the fertilization material for the V-swords. The fridge system that we use at the moment is less elaborate. I just dug down into a biome where there was frozen chlorine, so I guess this is cold enough. And we either have this bottom pit filled with carbon dioxide or chlorine. The temperature range is at minus 34 degrees. And here we have our researcher back, hopefully with a handful of databanks. I already sent over the databanks to the first planet and here they are, allowing us to continue the research for the telescope module, while the material science research is done here, thanks to McLim here, allowing us to finally build the cartographic module. So that's the correct name for the thing. The cartographic module allows you to fly into undiscovered areas on the space map, meaning as soon as this has been built, we should be able to fly right into those unknown areas. But first we need food. Nazgul, stressed again and hungry, waiting for the next food delivery. If you are wondering how I kept them alive, like this. I'm sending over food from our main planetoid. After sending over a bigger batch of food, skill scrubbing duplicants and sending them back to the rocket could be started and aimed for the next goal, bringing us further in our endeavor to colonize every planetoid. We also heated up the base in this area, just for fun. For the next planetary goal, I decided on going to Zapiol, which is a small radioactive moonlet. Our dupes took a little bit of time off and now they can be deployed to the surface. Nazgul and Nazgul the dupe both can use the Trailblazer module to be sent down to the planetary surface. After at least one of them arrived, we do the same thing as always, deconstruct the Trailblazer module, wait for the second Trailblazer module, deconstruct that as well, and use the material for a new rocket launch platform. Also, only reassign needed skills for the dupes, like hard digging. The next important task would be finding oxygen, which is here to the left. Meanwhile, the original Nazgul finished his job of building the rocket platform, meaning we can land our rocket now, giving the duplicants their bedroom back as well as access to food and oxygen. Well, as soon as we build the ladders. Here again, to save us time for the duplicants to reach the Trailblazer module, we can just move the modules around. Now that the dupes regained the access to the module, we bought a little bit of time to prepare the necessities for this planetoid. Meaning access to more food, an area where we can farm plants, a larger amount of water, preferably in a pool, which we can use for farming and oxygen production, and maybe even a kitchen and an underground bedroom. A short-term food supply has been secured, and down there are even more hexalent plants, meaning as soon as we reach them, we should have enough time to send over more food from the first planet, leaving us with the task of producing oxygen for the rocket and the duplicants. For that I was planning to use the water pockets here in the temperate biome, after storing the food of course. Thank you Nazgul the dupe. Nazgul and Nazgul the dupe continued to merge all of the water pockets further down in the current biome. The end goal here was create an electrolyzer setup in this biome. In the end, we didn't do that and decided on some other place. Back at the rocket, I finished building the ladder system and moved the modules around until I was happy, leaving us with this exact arrangement. And now we can take care of the oxygen production for the dupes. I decided on this area right here because it is really cold, helping us cooling down the oxygen and not heating up our farming area at the same time. We are starting with a pump, an electrolyzer, a transformer, a few batteries and of course heavy watt wire. The power will come from the solar panels. And as you can see in the background, I sent over food again. We are a little bit sparse on metals though. Back to the rocket, we can replace the cartographer's module with solar panels again, giving us access to power inside of the rocket as well. And because our ladder is too short for the dupes to reach it, I just rearranged the modules again, helping the dupes finish the construction errands. Here we do have the finished improvised oxygen production area. Further down on this planet I started a little bit of a base, just a few cots, a lot of meter wood and a lavatory for the start. I even managed to squeeze in a potential great hall. I let the dupes construct the cables for kitchen setup plus food storage. Interesting side note, because our dupes are always stressed. Nazgul the dupe here is a binge eater, and always when he's stressed he tries to eat all of our food. This time the food is here in the interplanetary payload and he can't reach it, but he still runs back and forth all the time just to maybe nibble on the pickled meal. Back at our oxygen station, I added a mechanical filter to filter out our oxygen, so we can use it in the rocket, the suits and down in the base. The next thing I have planned has to do with one of our short-term visitors. Here to the left we have the lovely Echo that decided to visit our base. And to make up for the fact that I have this cute little commercial running around, diligently working in the base, I have something special in mind to make up for it. But first I added an egg cracker and a rock crusher to these lower parts of the base, which probably has to do with the fact that I took in 3 shovel eggs. And then I prepared this larger area in the top part of the base for the next big project on this planet. I chose the salt biome because it was already pretty warm there. So why did I dig up that area, you might ask? Well, it is a well-known fact that Echo absolutely loves his hydras, at least according to Wit, which is my only source and absolutely reliable on that matter. So please send any questions in their direction. The difference between a Hydra and a Rodriguez is that a Hydra has two built-in infinite storages that can hold unlimited amounts of oxygen and hydrogen. But to achieve that, you will need to exploit the game mechanics, covering the electrolyzers in two different liquids. A Rodriguez stops and or works only when a desired pressure is hit. A Hydra works non-stop forever, at least as long as it is supplied with water. Meanwhile, we took in a little bit of muckroot and placed it in our improvised food storage. By the way, this is how the base looked during the building process. And this is how the lower part of the base looks right now. I managed to squeeze in a park and a nature reserve down here. All the other plants that we can find here give us more chances for more nature reserves. I managed to squeeze in another nature reserve right here. Finally, this overlay comes in handy, so we can see that here are 4 plants. We even got a new achievement. Some reservations. More than 4 nature reserves. Nice. This also happened before finishing and activating the Hydra. I integrated a bedroom right into it, so our lovely Echo can stay close to it. He even has his own latrine. Now we just have to kickstart it, give power to this upper room, so that this part of the Hydra gets vacuumed out, become hydrogen, this part becomes oxygen, at least after we turned our electrolyzers on. And our blue-haired Echo will live in his beautiful, beautiful Hydra, just like he likes it. And to you, Wit, I hope that you can move on to your next goal now. We only need Nazgul the dupe now to run on the thread mill until both of the rooms are vacuumed out, which might take a while. I even added a second hamster wheel to speed up the process. We already vacuumed out the oxygen part of the Hydra, and we just have to wait for the upper hydrogen storage to also be vacuumed out. And then we can start this up. I think we have 2 vacuums now. But in difference to my last Hydra, this one has to be primed, even though it looks almost the same. Which means we want a little bit of hydrogen in the top part, so that the correct gases will land in the respective areas. But just out of curiosity, I want to try it without priming it. So after saving, we just have to connect up the water and then wait for the gases to fill the rooms. Yeah, as expected, it didn't correctly disperse. We have the hydrogen stuck in this tile, or at least in one of those tiles here. So this Hydra, compared to my other Hydras, isn't a self-sorting one, meaning we need to prime the rooms with the respective gas that we want to have in there. And I'm going to do that by using a gas bridge and a gas pipe. And the hydrogen to fill it will just come from the atmosphere here, because the gases here are quite the mess, allowing us to just suck up the atmosphere and cut the pipes as we need it. There's a single pipe piece with hydrogen, which is enough to prime the room. And how are we going to do that? Since the hydrogen is now stuck in this corner pipe piece, well, easy, the dupes can just reach it, leaving us with a hydrogen filled room, at least if we don't vacuum it out accidentally. After saving the game again, I'm now connecting the first electrolyzer, playing the start and stop game to check if everything is in order, which it seems to be. There was one weird tile that fixed itself. Now the second electrolyzer can be hooked up. The reason why you don't see any atmosensors in the lower part where the oxygen is being sucked up by the pumps is because 2 electrolyzers produce slightly more oxygen than 3 pumps can handle, so we are never in danger of creating a vacuum down here. After having both gases separated, you only need to kickstart the system by feeding in external power in order for enough hydrogen to accumulate to keep the system self-running, needing no further external input except for the water. And now we can close this off, I think. The hydrogen pressure is not really high with only 300 grams, but we'll see if this is enough. These can also be deconstructed. It also looks like there's enough space for a recreation room and maybe even more nature reserves. And of course we didn't forget to pick up the debris in here. If we take a quick look at the room overlays, we managed to squeeze in more rooms. This is a barracks, this is a park, nature reserve and a latrine. This should be a recreation room as soon as we have more decor items. Found some, now we have a recreation room here. By the way, those are the rooms at the moment. I squeezed in more nature reserves. Lower part of the base, Echo's living module, refueling station with improved oxygen production from down here. The cold oxygen from up here is being used for down in the base because I don't want to heat it up, and we have heat producing equipment like this grill, so this will heat up over time anyways. That's why I'm using the cold oxygen down here, and hot oxygen from here will be used for the rocket. What the heck? I was wondering where the third shovel is. Right in here. I don't think that it's too good. Okay guys, this is how the main planet looks at the moment. It worked perfectly fine, and I only had to do the switcheroo for the atmosuits once in a while. The second planet is still a mess, but I'm tiling in the lower areas slowly so we get a few frames back. And I'm also sucking up the gas that I don't need and vacuum it out into space. The living area seems to be fine, but I just noticed that there's a lot of carbon dioxide accumulated down here, which means we probably have a water and heat issue at the moment. So cooling this area in the future wouldn't hurt, so the thimbleweed can grow again. Steakhoos' place hasn't changed much. He mostly sits in his living area and produces sand for this filtration system, so that the oxygen keeps on running, filling up the suits, which he needs to produce sand. So it's basically keeping him busy. I also moved my thimbleweed production in the vicinity of the steam turbines because they get cooled once in a while, meaning cooling the area as well. But as you saw, already heated up again. We managed to build this rocket refueling station with a tiny area where the dupes can chill out, produce some very much needed radiation sickness medicine, and a very improvised food storage. Oh nice, that is at minus 60 degrees at the moment, so this actually worked. Maybe because of the liquid chlorine. Okay, I need to put a stop to the cooling here. But this is a very nice food system. The payload opener will throw the food right in there. But the payload opener is not automated, so I could improve on that. And this is the real heart of the base. The exploit that slowly fills up the petroleum until, well, the tiles break. We are cloning petroleum with this setup here at around 2.5 kilograms a second. And the petroleum is nice and cool, exactly 30 degrees Celsius, because that is what I set our current ambient temperature sensor to. So it only cools the upper part of this when the temperature gets too hot. The cloned petroleum will take on the temperature that is running through. So the 30 degrees petroleum will drop down and cool our equipment here. But this year is way colder because it has a thermal contact to the surrounding area. The petroleum will be used to fill the rocket, to power our base. This is of course self-cooled because the petroleum is only 30 degrees Celsius. This petroleum generator will produce water. The water then can be used to produce fertilizer, which we can use again for the rocket. Or we could just use the water for oxygen production, or for crops, or for thimbleweed. This has 27 degrees Celsius. This is super nice for thimbleweed, by the way. And in addition to this planetoid, I managed to colonize a slice of another one, Zapiol, to be exact. Zapiol is powered by only 3 solar panels, which powers our main oxygen supply, which provides cold oxygen for the lower parts of our planetoid, which is the living and food supply area of the planet. And why is that the case? Because the temperature here is pretty nice for crops, meaning I could grow mealwood here, because the dupes were starving a lot and I had to send over food way too often. Now that we have our Hydra-Setup, we use this to refuel the rocket. The Hydra-Setup for our lovely Echo has been created to please Wittkopdotz. There you go, now you should finally be happy. And we did manage that, while at the same time keeping nature in place with a park and a nature reserve, and another park and more nature reserves. We even managed to get in a great hole for a little bit of morale boost for the dupes, and a tiny little recreation room to the left. Here's our grilling dupe, pickling the meals and cooking a little bit of barbecue when something dies. Also, how about some basic red pills? I got rid of the complete carbon dioxide down here with this little setup here, which is just a loop from a carbon skimmer to a water sieve, filled up once, then never filled up with water again. We only need sand, and we got rid of all the carbon dioxide. Only the chlorine remained. And with this, thanks to the 2 Nazguls, all my other lovely supporters, and remember, if you want your own duplicant, you can swing by the Patreon, think about a YouTube membership, or press the super thanks button. This will greatly support me in my YouTube endeavor, and I will put every single one of you in this Let's Play sooner or later. Even if it means flooding this freaking base with your beautiful duplicants. Until the game crashes or freezes. And I now wish you a good night or a beautiful day. Also, check those out. All the parkour. Oh man, so many critters. On the main planet they're more concentrated in the middle area. In Verdoling I ate them so the dupes survive. Okay, that's it guys. See you next time when we explore this area right here. Love you guys and Luma out.